So you know those redraw challenges you see on social media that either aim to improve the quality or draw in a different style? Well, I wanted to try something similar but a bit different. You see, I don't really think my style has reached a level of appeal to be the only thing I change in a redraw and have it be great. So I have to use other things to my advantage, like playing around with the composition, perspective, and lighting to see if I can enhance the image. Basically, I'll be taking the role of the director to reimagine the scene, and I wanted to recreate the most impactful anime moments to me. And I know there's a lot of anime moments, but I think I landed on the best 3. Starting with the infamous Cell saga, where Vegeta and Trunks were on the verge of defeating Imperfect Cell. Trunks was actually trying to end the fight, but Vegeta's dumb self had the brilliant idea of wanting to see Cell go full power. Like the smart person Trunks is, he disagrees with his father and ends up fighting back for the first time and humbles him, blasting him all the way into the ocean, which sets our scene. Vegeta floating in the water, glistening in the sun. I chose this scene because I've always thought of Vegeta as a glorified tsundere, which he is, but this was one of the first few times we actually got to see Vegeta take a moment to reflect. And this was the beginning of me actually starting to respect Vegeta a little more. Only for him to go back to his stubborn ways literally 10 seconds later, but hey, let's not take away this moment from him. It's the thought that counts. First, I started out by setting up the perspective, which was pretty difficult because it was a bird's eye shot that was ever so slightly tilted up, which was messing with my brain, but I somehow managed. As for his positioning, I wanted him to be on the third of the screen, but a little bit more zoomed out, creating this more isolated feel. Like he's really taking the time to reflect on what's occurred. Lastly, I decided to give his face a more softer expression while still keeping the Vegeta-ness of it. And that was pretty much it for the sketch. The line art and color flats were easy because I laid most of the groundwork during the sketch. For the water, I started with a simple yellow to blue gradient. I was very afraid to start doing the waves because I've always struggled drawing waves. I know, something very random to struggle drawing with, but you still struggle with drawing hands. And it's 2023. Get your life together. Anyways, luckily for me, all it took was a quick trip to the Eclipse Studio Paint asset store to pick up a wave brush. Then for the highlights in the water, I just used a lasso tool, which helped me get the base shapes in before really rendering. When it came to rendering Vegeta, having a reference on how the body looks / reacts when floating in water was very helpful. The wavy effect I achieved with just a liquify tool. When it came to the final rendering, just a simple round brush and the color picker tool was all I used. And lastly, for some color correction, I just played around with the curves and I landed on this. Up next, we have the iconic Guts versus Griffith rematch. Most people already draw this scene, but I wanted to draw the scene just a little bit. Guts really disrespected this man by ending it in one swing. He had Griffith on his knees, defeated, while Guts silently walked away from him and everyone else, only leaving the parting words of Jana. This scene is also complemented by the cold yet beautiful winter landscape. This moment really had me because it was one of the first few times we've seen Griffith really shook, defeated, and embarrassed like that. So I really wanted to capture those feelings. This time around, I was indecisive on what posing and cameraing I wanted. Should I switch it up a lot like I did before, or should I keep it closer to the original? So I did some thumbnails to see which one I would like better, which is something I should be getting in the habit of doing, but I don't because it usually goes down like this. My first thumbnail is really good because it's the one I want. Then all my other thumbnails are really weak because I put all my effort into the first. In the end, I end up going with the first one, which defeats the whole purpose. #artist struggle. Anyways, I decided on a shot that that is established at Griffith eye level, which leads into Guts standing tall and walking away, which creates this sort of power dynamic and leads the viewer's eyes. I didn't feel like drawing the poses from scratch, so I traced over my own reference photos, which saved a lot of time. Then I adjusted the proportions of the anatomy to fit each character, Griffith being slim and Guts being more built. Before I even started the line art, I started on the background because this time it wasn't as simple as waves. I had a whole landscape to paint. Backgrounds really make me sick to my stomach. But you know, with references, anything is possible. So again, I started with gradients, rough shapes and colors to really get the base down before I started really rendering. Then I went back and got the line art and flatting done. I decided to make Guts' cape flow a bit more elegantly to feel more victorious, and it added a little bit of a Greek tragedy feel to it. Then I came back to the background and added texture with brushes and finished rendering with a round brush and a color picker. Again, I added a blue bounce light from the sky to make them really feel like they're part of the environment. Lastly, decided to blur the background despite all my time and effort put on it. Man, poor Griffith. Remember guys, friends are fake and will always leave in time of need. Hashtag Griffith did nothing wrong. Hunter x Hunter, the greatest anime of all time. Fact, not opinion. The last scenes were a bit more melancholy, so I decided to draw a bit more of a grittier scene. That beating that was Kurapika versus Uvogen. Where Kurapika has Uvogen in critical condition, demanding to know where the Phantom Troop is. Answer correctly, you may be able to escape. Answer incorrectly, you die. What does Uvogen decide to do? Answer with this cold one line. I chose this scene because it hurt to watch. Uvogen was one of my favorite Phantom Troop members because of his personality and his character design. He was solid, he stayed 10 toes down and never snitched. A lot of people would have ratted, me included. So as my parting gift to him, I decided to draw his final moment. For this one, I kept the angle the same, only zooming out to show the chain piercing him. Not only did this help create a foreground, middle ground, and background, it also helps lead the viewer's eyes into his face. The facial expression here is the main star of the show since it's a portrait shot, so I knew I had to get it right. I wanted to see if I could sneak in a bit of remorse while still keeping the "don't care if you kill me" look he originally had, which was a really difficult task. The chains were really easy to do since I found a chain brush that came with multiple different perspectives. This time I really didn't feel like doing line art, so I decided to turn this into a more paint sketch, which made the rendering pretty basic for this. I just merged all the layers while keeping my sketch layer on top, but it can get annoying at times because I have to redo areas all over again. I know, boo-hoo, poor me, artist problems. I tried something new this time, which was photo bashing, which I used for the moon, the lens flare, and the clouds. This was another huge time saver, and if you can't tell by now, I love saving time. I created a complementary color scheme for the lighting, which you can see in the red blood moon, which provided a strong rim light, and I also added a secondary green soft light that came from the sky, which allowed me to show more details in the face. And since the rim light was so strong, I added a bit of bloom, which was a really nice touch. Lastly, I blurred the foreground this time instead of the background, which further helped emphasize the face as the focal point, and I landed with it. Remember guys, snitching is always the right course of action. Did I succeed in everything I tried to accomplish today? No. I like the compositions I created. I feel like I really did the director's role justice in that department. But when it came to executing on the facial expressions, the place where you see the most emotions, I feel like I didn't really deliver. I eventually have to do an expression study soon, which I've been putting off for a while, but hey, maybe next video. Anyways, come join the Discord if you haven't already. Love you guys. Peace.